people are, children are standing in the snow and people are dying and everything is gloomy and dark. That's how Finnish Christmas is.
Wait. Tony Kakko is the singer and founder of Sonata Arctica, as well as one of the most influential figures in the world of symphonic and power metal. But as if Sonata Arctica didn't keep him busy enough, Tony is ready to share an exciting new chapter in his career as he unveils Himmelkraft. Tony, thank you so much for joining me
Thanks
today.
for having me. Happy to be here.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Yesterday we had a pretty cold day to be doing outside work, yard work and stuff. -70, and today it's like close to zero, so it's going up and down. I'm happy working outside, so little bit warmer weather. It doesn't really harm in that sense. It's really difficult to stay healthy at this time of year. Sometimes, you never know what to wear.
I have some friends who live in areas of Russia that also get extremely cold, sometimes -20, -30. And I noticed that their own personal development over the years was affected by the kind of life that you get to have when you live in a place that, you cannot just go out willy-nilly when it is -20 or -30 or something like that. Do you find that kind of the Finnish personality, or at the very least the Kakko personality, has been shaped by the limits imposed by living in such a frozen tundra?
Of course, a climate, it has something, affects your mental state. The people living in a warmer countries, they seem to be more mellow, maybe. And we Finns, we are really reserved. I don't know, maybe it's in our DNA or something like that. But, spending so much time indoors during winter time, maybe we have grown to be that way. It's a long winter that we have. And back in the day when you didn't have like sports arenas and such places where you can go and meet people, it was a pretty solitary life, I imagine, for a lot of people. And maybe that is somehow transferred to the DNA of the more recent generations as well. But of course, it affects your mental state. For some people, the darkness and the Christmas time, especially, it's very gloomy and dark time mentally as well. And for me, I enjoy all the times of the year. Autumn probably for me is the most difficult one, when it's gray and it's raining all the time and it's dark and we don't have snow yet. Finnish people enjoy the comfortable silence. It might be a very uncommon, like a concept for many people, but for us, it's very nice when you are within friends and with friends there, and just be quiet and feel comfortable about it. And it's like, it's good to be here, and then it's just okay. See you next time. That kind of stuff. And we do not have very much of this, small talk culture. It's talking shit, basically. Finns, generally speaking, don't like that much. Although, I enjoy speaking with people, but I always tell everybody that my social tank, it's very small and it drains really easily. So I have certain amount of energy reserved for being social with people, and then I just, scoot off somewhere. And I usually, a lot of it goes, interacting with fans and meeting people, business people and such. And then, I don't meet my friends that often, even, maybe I might sometimes, I might not even call my best friends for half a year or so. And then we just, we come up with some reason to meet and just continue where we left off the previous time. That's how it works. We feel so weird, but it's especially when you go to North America, for example, where it's so drastically different. People, they have this small talk culture, and all the time you have to talk and be nice. It feels okay. It's nice to say hi to some stranger in an elevator, which is like you do that in Finland, and you get like weird looks, and who the fuck is that? Like almost you're threatened if someone you don't know even says hello to you in a like confined space. What does he want from me?
Has this been a very big challenge for you to have this very limited social battery while at the same time having to increasingly so over the years do meet and greets with fans and have to do more interviews with every dude sitting in a room wanting to have a conversation about your album, etc. Has that been very difficult for you?
It's been getting easier as I get a little bit older and somehow get more accustomed being recognized and everything. Which alone, going in a local grocery store, for example, back in the day, it was very difficult for me because people recognized me and wanted to have an autograph and take a photo maybe, and then that felt like, oh my god, awful. But you get used to it, and of course, I slowly started accepting it as a sort of necessary evil as well, and even embrace the fact that I would not be able to do what I want to do without these people. So it's a blessing to be recognized and loved enough for people to go and start talking with you and everything. And when it comes to these show moments and meeting fans, I consider that being part of the day. It's in like I reserve that social battery for those moments, and it's not like 10 hours of encounters with people and talking with people constantly. Those are like few minutes here and there, and it's tolerable. But still, there are some people even in some of the articles that they seem to be they just after the show and after meeting the fans and everything, they continue the social interactions with our own crew, and people in the bus. They spent the night in the bus talking, whereas me and our bass player Pasi, for example, we just walk straight upstairs, and you pretty much never ever see us downstairs in the bus, or in a lounge, hanging out with people and having a beer or whatever. Just confine ourselves in our bunks and watch a movie or something and just have a me time, alone time.
Let's talk about Himmelkraft. I've heard that in one way or another, you've had this band in mind, at the very least the name, for years. So how did it come to be?
It's almost a joke that we had just released our first album, and I already was talking about a side project, and that's when I came up with the name Himmelkraft. So that was like 2000, 24 years ago. So it's been around for a long, long time, and already around that time, I had an idea what kind of music it would be, but it changed a lot within 20 years. And whenever I had a song or a couple of songs that did not feel like they are fit for Sonata Arctica somehow, and these are like the basic cornerstones of my solo project, somehow Sonata Arctica still managed to steal those songs, and I found a way to arrange them in a Sonata Arctica fitting form. And I think it was only 2014 or 16 when I actually wrote first songs that did not somehow end up in Sonata Arctica's album, and they were drastically different. Like the first song on the album, "Full Steam Ahead," for example, that's never ever going to be a Sonata Arctica song, and that's when I knew also that which kind of musical direction Himmelkraft would go. There were many that were like very hard metal in some point. My idea that Himmelkraft would be like that, and and like almost like punk rock in some point. And but there's always been this sort of something leaning a little bit towards Rammstein kind of feel that I had in mind. So and Himmelkraft did not end up being like Rammstein, but still it has this like steam, this industrial kind of feel to it. Very light, but still. And so it's been brewing for a very long time, and maybe 2016, I think I would say that I started slowly coming up with enough songs for the album, and come Corona, with that made the whole thing actual, and I started actually working on the album, research studio time and everything, and got the band together, and I know people I want to work with. So without Corona, I'm pretty sure that we would not be here talking about this album.
As you describe musical journey, so to speak, that leads to Himmelkraft. I can remember if I because I read so much about it today. I don't know if I heard you say it or read that you said it, but that originally you mentioned that you had the name, right, Himmelkraft, and that you thought, well, what direction is it going to go, and that you even considered kind of black metal in addition to this industrial thing or the punk sound, which indeed they don't end up appearing in the album. When you thought of the black metal, particularly version of Himmelkraft, so to speak, what are the black metal bands that have influenced you or that you are into as a musician?
Well, I've been into Cradle of Filth in some point, and Dimmu Borgir. Those like most hardcore, I think. Well, Children of Bodom as well, and Strapping Young Lad. That's how I found Devin Townsend, my great hero right now, and I just love his vocals. He can just do amazing things with his pipes. So those mostly, I think. There must be others, but from the top of my head, yeah, that's like the heavier side of things. But my musical taste is so wide. Anything from Crash Dummies, Midnight Oil, Aerosmith, Queen, and then on the classical side, and then the black metals and whatnot, and early like 1920s jazz and that kind of stuff. Everything influences me.
The writing of Himmelkraft, is it just your thing? Because I know that the members of Himmelkraft are pretty close to the Sonata Arctica sphere. Of course, you have Timo and Pasi. Pasi being in Sonata Arctica, Timo is his brother, um, and Jere is your drum tech. So were
Yeah,
they part of the writing of the music as well, or was it just an issue of finding people to perform the music that you created?
yeah, the latter one. Just needed some guys to be able to, do whatever I did on a demo with real instruments. That was the idea. And it was like in case of Timo, for example, and especially with Timo, he plays the guitar. I have this like weird synth type guitar sounds and effects and all kinds of stuff. And I didn't actually mention him that you can really do whatever you like, basically sound wise on the album, and we can change it a little bit maybe if necessary. But he said that he had so many different kinds of pedals and such things that he had purchased back in the day and during the years that you know without his then wife knowing that he actually enjoyed starting to use those totally useless pedals and finding weird sounds and effects from those, and then he was able to replicate whatever I did pretty much spot on with a real guitarist, and it was like mind blowing. Like, what the hell? You have actually played these things with an actual guitar, like real guitar. There are even some like weird mistakes that I had in the demos that he has replicated, and it's like that's Timo for you. It's like really solid guy in that sense. maybe next time if we are fortunate enough to go on and create another Himmelkraft album, then maybe I will try to give him a little bit more freedom with playing. But we'll see. We'll see. Depends on how solid made, cast in stone kind of songs I've made. That sometimes, if I have enough time, like with Himmelkraft, with the first album I had, the ideas that I put in there, they are like, it's very difficult to start changing them anymore, and they pretty much have to be the way they are.
When you compare yourself as a songwriter between Tony Kakko writing for Himmelkraft and Tony Kakko working in Ecliptica all of those years ago, have you become more proficient in not just your singing, of course, but also instrumentally in your ability to come up with melodies, to put them down, to share them with other people, to develop more complexity?
With a couple of first albums, I think two first albums, I did not have any computer work. Those it was just man and the instrument. Everything that I had happened here, and then along came MIDI abilities, and learned to use MIDI and like sample tanks and such things. It expanded my world. I was able to make so many complex ideas and then put everything down there without using my 4 tracker and playing actually everything. And then it just, made everything both easier and more difficult at the same time. It is when you have stuff like MIDI, you can make so many big mistakes when you think of it, uh, when you actually have to be able to perform all these things live somehow as well, and then you come up with very elaborate, huge arrangements, and making things impossible maybe to perform with a 4 or 5 piece band. So, but yeah, things have changed. It was everything was much more organic in the early days. I don't think I even had actually like a computer powerful enough to be used in music production. But nowadays it's so easy. Everything you can even use your phone to create music that is like release quality, basically.
The release date that we have now here in Europe is for March 7 of 2025. But apparently in March already of this year, album came out in Japan. So
the idea about releasing in Japan first came from the management, basically. And I was like, sure, yeah, I'm not in a huge rush. Sonata Arctica happening at the same time. The Clear Cold Beyond album was coming out and everything. So there was a lot of work. So Japan was distant enough and giving me more time with the rest of the world and Himmelkraft. So, but finding actually the label I want to work with, it took a little bit longer, and I was very lazy about it as well. I didn't really search. Every now and then I shoot a message to management and have you sent anything anywhere? And yeah, actually, yeah, we'll find something. And I was already considering like crowdfunding and such things for Himmelkraft, but then manager found a way, and the Reaper was super excited about the whole project. So off we went, but it's definitely took much longer time than I had in mind, because Japan had like 6 month deal that they have like exclusive release for half a year, and well, extra half a year. It's not so bad really, because now we had a chance to make the most of this thing and make a really great package with books and everything.
So you mentioned that you were looking for another label, but so the album was released in Japan by Word Records.
Yeah.
It's not going to be that label here in well, the rest of the world, in the worldwide release. Why didn't you stick, for example, with Raining Phoenix Music, which is working with your Sonata Arctica album, or that wasn't an option?
We actually sent the demo or the album there, but they seemed not interested about it. It's painful to say, but in a way, I think it makes it easier for me to have separate labels and no mixing of the things, and like just Sonata Arctica stays as Sonata Arctica and Himmelkraft as Himmelkraft, and there's no business connections within the label in that sense. It's pure in that sense.
This isn't the first time that you first released something in Japan. I remember that you also did it, or was the plan at least to do it with the Ecliptica re-released, or the re-recording of Ecliptica that also starts in Japan, and then you are told, hey, how about we do it also in the rest of the world? And you've also done live in Tokyo, and it seems like Japan has had a pretty close relation with Sonata Arctica. I am curious just whether you have any theories as to what made Japan, of all places, such a welcoming place for Sonata Arctica.
One big thing was that Stratovarius and power metal in general was very big in Japan, like in 99 and 2000, around that time. And we came as a new, young, exciting band with songs that are really fitting into that genre. I was singing super high at the time, especially at that time still. And it just sank really well in Japan. They got head over heels in love with the debut album and a couple of followers as well. And we got like fairly big in Japan really quickly. So of course, with that, they started asking and sort of almost demanding that they would have tiny exclusive period of sales for their album before imports start pouring in. and those back in the day, that was the reason, because it was more expensive for them to buy the local album than actually getting an imported album delivered on their own door. So the local albums were super expensive, so they wanted to have like exclusive, like people want to go and get the album as soon as possible and pay a little extra and get the local version of it, instead of buying the imported versions where the local label doesn't get that much money, if any. So that was the idea behind it. It was a business thing purely.
Since you say that you were relatively big in Japan relatively quickly, was it strange to go to Japan, have a very large welcoming, and be kind of a big number, and then come back to Europe and still be known? Obviously, it's not like nobody knows you here, but to have this big contrast of big band in Japan, kind of mid-level venue in Europe. Do you notice a difference?
Not so much really. The big in Japan, it did not really reflect on our shows that much. We were already able to play quite a big shows in Europe as well, especially as the first two tours, first one with Rhapsody, Story Warriors and Rhapsody, and then the second one with Gamma Ray. We got to piggyback a little bit of these bigger bands, and then we were able to play in bigger places. So that evened the gap between our own shows in Japan. Also, I think it was 2001 when we played our first show in Japan. So that was not the really beginning anyways. They tried to have us there with the first album already, but it was maybe smarter for us to get a little bit more accustomed with ourselves and playing live and everything, and because we were sort of a raw apple when we were picked from the tree, like a demo band, not at all ready to be famous and playing actual real shows anywhere with Eclectica. That was like just, we were just a demo band. Guys didn't have any idea. Very excited, but totally raw. And so we were very fortunate that we got to work with people that were kind to us and willing to teach us, and then took really good care of us already with the first tour. So, yeah.
One of the positive things of the fact that Himmelkraft was released in Japan already, and that I found that somebody put it on YouTube, is that I was able to read reactions from fans, right? Apparently, I don't know if the video is not accessible everywhere, so there weren't that many views, even though it was uploaded in March. But I did read one that I thought was quite interesting. Somebody said that the sound of Himmelkraft sounded like Sonata Arctica from before, and it kind of this intermediate period of stuff like Unia, Days of Grace, and A Stone's Throw Her Name. And so what somebody was saying, I guess defending your work, is to say, well, it is just that these albums, people didn't get them. And so you have this split, you have this road of people who want to continue with Sonata Arctica kind of as a power metal outfit, continuing on the line of certainly Ecliptica successor, etc. And on the other, you have Himmelkraft that shows you what Sonata could have been if they had continued in the expansion of Unia, Days of Grace, and Stones Throw Her Name.
Yeah, I saw that reaction and those comments as well, and it was like, oh my god, that is these people really do not know what they're talking about. Sonata Arctica was never ever going to be anything like that at all. It was just experimenting a little bit with different kind of things, and Sonata Arctica was always supposed to be and stay Sonata Arctica. There were few direction changes, especially late 2000s, with first Unia, then Days of Grace, and then Stones Throw Her Name, and then we got more back on the track of where Sonata Arctica was supposed to go. There were like few adventures here and there, like Stones Throw Her Name. I thought it was like way too rock album. There are quite a few like normal rock pop songs there. But then again, now that I listened to the album later on, I realized that it also has probably the most metal moments of Sonata Arctica's career on that album.
So you don't see then Himmelkraft as so you disagree fundamentally with.
Absolutely, yeah. This is totally different. This is just music that is not Sonata Arctica and would never have been. I would not have allowed Sonata Arctica to go and be this slow and like it. There might have been one album that goes into that direction, but then it's very easy to see when you go touring that this album did not work at all. Like if we released Stone's Her Name album, for example, it felt very slow and we wanted to do something more uh, power metal-esque with the next album. And same thing happened also with Talviyö, our previous South Arctic album. And it was super slow and it did not turn out the way we imagined it should. And so it was like very necessary move to do something drastic and go back into the real Sonata Arctica track path. And I think Clear Cold Beyond is the most pure power metal-esque album of Sonata Arctica in very, very long time.
When you say that Talview didn't necessarily work out the way you wanted it to be, what do you mean by that? So do you think that it is like not a
It's
good album?
I love the songs. They're very good songs, but I think it was there are two things: the production, it was too soft. We should have gone towards more metal soundscape. It would have served the album much better. And also, I had so big problems with my vocals for a couple of years, starting since 2016. I think I started having this it was tongue tension that proved to be the biggest problem because I was unable to slowly, it got worse and worse. And I was unable to sing high notes without, completely emptying my lungs within a second. And for a singer, because I was unable to hold my breath and just keep the note. And for a singer, that's a nightmare. So what I was supposed to be like a really strong, brisk, high note, it ended up being like, that kind of stuff, and it's a nightmare for a singer. And Talvio album definitely suffers from that thing. It was a very hard album for me to sing, and if something, I would love to remake that album partially, remix it and sing it again. That was the problem with the album.
I take it then that this problem that you have with the tension in your tongue has gone away. I mean, you got treatment.
Yeah, once I noticed it was ridiculous when I started stretching my tongue, and it was like going all over the place. Like as any muscle that you start stretching, and if it's tense, it starts to tremor and everything as it relaxes. And that this was the big problem with my tongue. And so any singer out there, if you are suffering from any such things that it feels like your lungs are emptying within a second, that might be the one thing to check at least. Carefully start stretching. There are like videos and such things
Right, you don't just
online.
grab it and just pull it really hard.
Yeah, no, don't pull it out. You need it.
It was already surprising when years ago when I realized that a lot of singing is not necessarily done in the throat, that it's done lower, and now to know that your ability to reach a high note might be affected not by the muscles in your diaphragm, but rather by your tongue. Fascinating. I had no idea. So, does it make you more careful about how you manage your body?
Singing in South Arctica is sort of extreme sport in the sense that the notes are very high, and especially early our career, I was constantly singing way above my like normal vocal range. It's like over the top and way too high, and so even tiniest parting or whatever stretch or flu or whatever, it affected my ability to reach those glory notes very drastically. And then of course you became a little bit paranoid very quickly about your own health and everything that might affect your ability to perform on stage, because it's a nightmare situation knowing that now people are expecting me to hit that note and I already know that I'm going to fail. You do not want that, and it's something that you want to avoid at all costs. So yeah.
Have you ever finished the show thinking I sounded like crap?
Yes, absolutely. But thankfully, we have a like very nice front of house guy. No, it was okay. And that actually, oftentimes, even when you think that you totally sucked, it's mostly because you had a very difficult time doing what you do. It's like you have to strain and just push it very hard, and you think that you suck, but the audience necessarily does not notice that much, really. Because if you reach the real notes, of course, it's normal because life is life. And if you're on tour, people can even understand that, vocals can be strained a little bit, the vocal cords, and we are human beings after all. So it's something that just happens, and uh, and fans hopefully understand that thing as well.
Have you felt that, particularly after stuff like Talview, like Days of Grace, that your early work to an extent limited what you were able to do? That people had such strong expectations as to the identity of your, or rather, of your identity as an artist and of the sound that you create, that they're not going to let you necessarily explore everything you want to explore?
In a way, yeah. Of course, you are any band. I think there are exceptions, but a lot of bands, at least, they somehow fall victim of their early work. Like I said, there are exceptions, like Pantera, for example. They were a power metal band early on, and then
A
they
glam
changed.
metal band.
And yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. When it comes to Sonata Arctic early albums, I was never really a metalhead. I was more of a Queen, Aerosmith kind of guy, like a little bit softer, hard rock, basically, and into that kind of music. But then Stratovarius happened with their Visions album. That hit me really hard, and of course, my band, we had to start first covering them, and I forced our drummer to learn the double kicks and everything, and slowly we became the power metal lesque version of Sonata Arctica, and everybody stamped us as a like power metal band, whereas I always considered us being something a little bit different. Yes, we have the power metal side, but when you compare us to bands like Dragon Force, for example, we are very much from the other, you know, side of the power metal. They are like extreme power metal, and then we are something else. And there are so many different sides to Sonata Arctica, and I very much early on, even with the second album already, wanted to expand what Sonata Arctica is about. And that has proven to be very difficult when you realize that maybe you did go a little bit too far with your experimentations and searching yourself artistically and as a songwriter. There are few songs and even albums that I think might have been better off as my solo project maybe, and would have been smart business wise to keep Sonata Arctica as pure Sonata Arctica as possible without having too many weird songs on any given album. It used to be like we had some oddball song on just about on any album, and it was just refreshing for everybody. But then somehow the ratio of those songs, they just flipped in some point, and then the most of the album was pretty artsy, like Unia, for example, and people did not take it very kindly. But then again, those songs and those albums have found their own fan base, and which is weird because we have like a fairly thin layer of fans of both sides of Sonata Arctica out there in the world, and it's very hard to please all of them at the same time. But we still try. Yeah.
In the press release that I received from the label, and with this we will close, they mentioned explicitly that Himmelkraft is not just a place to dump excess Sonata Arctica music. Um, do you think that that people kind of expect that?
Well, I hope people can, when they actually listen to the album and everything, they can fairly quickly understand that these are not Sonata Arctica B-sides. All right, there are like a couple of songs that easily would transform into Sonata Arctica realm in a way, like I Was Made to Rain on Your Parade. That's a pure ballad. and it would work with slightly changed lyrics with Sonata Arctica as well, very easily. There's nothing to it, but Himmelkraft is definitely, it's not trying to reinvent music per se, but just do its own thing within a certain loose box that I've chosen to squeeze it in, and but it's very different, and it has a soul of its own, separate from Sonata Arctica. And I'm in a totally different mood and place when I'm working and thinking about Himmelkraft. And it's a very early on with the project, and I just hope that it gets a chance with people and finds its own audience, separate, or maybe somehow connected with Sonata Arctica fans. Of course, Sonata Arctica fans is the core of Himmelkraft, finding its audience. It's very difficult nowadays to be an unknown band and try to find the audience, because I don't know how do you do that anymore, especially if you are not going to tour extensively. Like right now at this moment, I have no plans for Himmelkraft ever being a live band, especially not with the first album yet. Maybe with the second one, if we get to release the second album, then we have at least enough material, and we'll see about it then. But definitely, I do not need another Sonata Arctica type touring band in my life. I don't have time for that. I have a family and everything. So having like festival shows here and there or something like that, something that is not blocking anything related to Sonata Arctica, that would be fun to do one day, but it's way, way, way too early to even think about live things.
And what about covering one of these Himmelkraft songs when you're touring with Sonata Arctica, which that seems slightly more doable?
Absolutely not. The original idea with him, absolutely not. The original idea with Himmelkraft was for the whole band to be like Ghost, in a way, like the early Ghost, when nobody actually knew who these guys are, and there's like mystery.
Yeah, I still get the
about
promo
the
photos
whole.
with all of your faces are
Yeah,
whited
yeah,
out.
and that's probably how it's going to be in the future as well, because I know it's this world is missing a lot of mystery, but and I, for a very long time, even when we were trying to find label and everything for this project, my idea was that we are not going to bring out that I am singing here and then and this is like somehow related to Sonata Arctica or whatever. It's just a new thing, and let's see how it goes. But then I realized that people hear me singing the few first notes, they're gonna recognize
There is
that
zero
it's
chance I
me.
would have listened to this album and not know it's you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it would have been spoiled immediately. But still, as much as possible, I want to keep it like
More
separate from.
ethereal,
Yeah,
more.
theory. Yeah, exactly. Have like this almost virtual band kind of thing, because they are living underground the whole thing, and then it's like a mystery thing, underground society.
And well, with 2024 being the release of Himmelkraft and the release of the latest Sonata Arctica album, in this case through Rising Phoenix Music, how do you feel about your musical output throughout the year? Are you satisfied with your work?
Well, there's been certainly enough releases if we count Himmelkraft Japan version as a like a release in that sense, which it is. So it's definitely been enough for me. And my work for this year is not still done. I have like maybe 5 more raskasta joulua Christmas shows to do, and which is very exciting. It's fun to work with these people, and it's like a very warm environment, very nice, and big shows and everything. So yeah,
Considering that Finland is one of the most atheist countries in the world, at least by like census data, I was very
yeah,
surprised to see that Raskastajola, this band of just singing Finnish Christmas music, was as popular as it is. But the first time I found out about it, you told it to me in an interview. So it was years
yeah,
ago. I looked it up. I saw Marco
right,
Hietala and other people there
yeah.
performing. and it's huge. I was really surprised at how
Yeah,
popular this sort of Christmas music is in Finland.
yeah. It's these songs are arranged in a very metal rock kind of way, and of course there are so many songs that everybody basically knows in Finland. They are very emotional. The Finnish Christmas songs, they fit metal and rock music very well, as they are not your American type happy, happy, joy, joy, let's have a Christmas joy kind of songs, but rather they are like people are, children are standing in the snow and people are dying and everything is gloomy and dark. That's how Finnish Christmas is. You,
Wait,
yeah,
your Christmas music involves people dying?
yeah, they're like you are going in the graveyard and so maybe put a flower on the grave of your mother, kind of stuff, and that's yeah.
Okay, so that's how it got to be famous in Finland. All of your
Yeah,
all of your Christmas music is pretty metal. Fantastic.
yeah,
Tony,
yeah. There are
thank you.
no jingle bells there. So,
Oh, Tony, thank you so much for your time today. Here in the Netherlands,
absolutely,
it
my
is
pleasure.
Sinterklaas today, which is kind of like the Dutch Santa Claus. So
Yes,
happy
I am aware.
Sinterklaas.
It's slightly different. Yeah.
And I
Thank
look
you very
forward to
much.
seeing you in 2025.
See you there on the other side.
Take care of yourself, man. Bye bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!